Week 8. Sources say teams are positioning themselves to make a move so the wide receiver is ready to play as soon as he is reinstated. And we certainly know all the off-the-field problems that Brown carries, but in case you forget about the talent on the field, from 13 through 18, he had 6 consecutive seasons of 100 catches and 1,000 yards. That's the most such seasons by any wide receiver ever. 2018, of course, was the last full season that Brown played in the NFL, and the good news is that I have Adam Schefter with me this morning. Shefty, good morning. What is the very latest on Antonio Brown and where he may wind up?
Well, let's be very clear. Seattle and Antonio Brown have not started out on contract negotiations, but I think there's a real sense and belief that he could wind up in Seattle if and when this process plays itself out, which could be sooner rather than later. Antonio Brown is in a situation where basically he has to be suspended through Week 8. He's eligible to be reinstated after Week 8. He could play as early as Week 9. Once that happens, at that point in time, again, we'll see who takes a run at him. But the Seahawks have had Russell Wilson in contact with him, Geno Smith in contact with him. Both players have worked out with him. So they've been tracking him. He's been tracking them. It's a logical fit. We'll see whether this happens. Is there another place we should be looking, or other specific places you've heard we should be looking? I think there are other teams that are testing the waters, feeling it out. I don't want to say it just yet because, again, it's speculative, but there are some teams out there that have been essentially reaching out and monitoring Antonio Brown, shall we say. Bear in mind that we're heading into Week 7, so you just do the math in your head. Week 8 is just next week, really, as you think through the course of this. So we are coming up on this. Shefty, stay close by. Let me bring the crew in for this morning. I mentioned Damian Woody is here, and Lewis and Dominique are with us this morning as well. Good morning, guys. And Lewis, let's start with you. Does it make sense? Should the Seahawks sign Antonio Brown?
I would just be very skeptical of doing this kind of thing, considering, Greeny, the kind of offensive chemistry that they already have. Look, I understand how talented Antonio Brown is. I understand that this is a Hall of Fame caliber wide receiver, that we know that when he's on top of his game is uncoverable. But just think of already the synergy and the chemistry that they have with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, and how Russell is already off to an MVP start to his season. The issues with Seattle are not their ability to strike and be explosive on offense. Their issues, quite honestly, are on the defensive side, where they want to generate more consistent pass rush, where they want to be able to make sure that they can close out games and shut people down when they need to. Offensively, they haven't had an issue right now. So, look, this would be something that obviously would push their offense over the top, so to speak, from an explosive component standpoint. But now you're introducing into your locker room something that you don't know as far as how it's going to gel with everything that you have going on there. And I know that there's people there who believe as though they could make sure that this still heads down the right path. And Russell's a great leader. And guys like Geno Smith have vouched for him. And we know that Pete Carroll is one of the great all-time leaders in the NFL from a head coaching perspective. It just seems very risky to me for a team that right now seems to be hitting on all cylinders.
Deke, you like it?
Nah, not at all. I mean, I think AB is a unique personality, and I think Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson probably work well with some unique personalities, but AB is a different kind of unique that I'm not sure that these guys are quite ready for. And there is every bit of a chance that he could come in and be fine and not cause any issues and be a great player. And I would understand taking that risk if you were deficient at receiver or you had some problems on offense, which it doesn't seem like the Seattle Seahawks have. I would look, if I were maybe the Ravens or the Eagles, teams that could use a playmaking receiver that's healthy and impactful, maybe those are teams with stable organizations that would look at taking him. But honestly, if I'm running a franchise, the risk is not worth the reward with AB at this point for me.
What do you think, Damian Woody? You like the idea of Seattle? Do you like the idea better of a place like Baltimore, where they don't really seem to have a number one?
I don't like the risk. I don't like the fit with Seattle, because it seems more of like a luxury rather than a need. I mean, this is a Seattle Seahawks team. They're clicking offensively. Why disrupt that type of energy, synergy that Lewis referred to? A team like Baltimore, now that would be interesting, because the one thing we talked about with Lamar Jackson is, the perimeter passing game. That area of the Baltimore Ravens offense could use a guy like Antonio Brown, a seasoned veteran, a guy who's, adept at just creating all types of mismatches one-on-one in the passing game.
Yeah.
I could see that, because they're a strong franchise with John Harbaugh.
I'm told Shefty wants to jump back in here. Shefty, what else do we have?
Well, I don't see Baltimore unless Antonio Brown were fully exonerated. And there are still issues out there pending against him that have not been fully resolved. Baltimore, with its history, with the way it went through the Ray Rice situation and issues, I don't think that organization would go in that direction. It's made it almost an organizational policy not to sign or acquire any player that's had any history like that since Ray Rice has happened. So to me, Baltimore wouldn't be an option unless Antonio Brown were fully and completely exonerated, which to this point he has not been.
Right, and it certainly seems to point out the timing again. That's not going to happen, we wouldn't expect, in the next 2 weeks. And so there really are two separate parts to the story. It's good that Shefty brought that up. There's the football fit, and then there's the other side of it that he just brought up. Neek, let me push back a little bit on the idea that maybe if you're taking a chance on someone like Antonio Brown, a luxury is a better way to do it than something that is a necessity. If he knows he's a luxury, if you know that if it doesn't work out, you can just pull the plug on it without it necessarily taking apart what you're trying to build, if he is a luxury rather than a necessity, maybe that actually is a better circumstance than the other way.
I love that as a logical way to approach this, but I'm not sure what AB has done in the past couple of years, at least publicly, that suggests that he behaves according to logic in the same way that we behave. So I'm not sure. Nothing to me suggests that AB would understand or would appreciate or can curtail his behavior that's detrimental to a team just because he's a luxury and he doesn't have the power of being needed. Like, we can look at the money that he's lost and the bridges that he burned in New England, like none of that was logical. We can look at the videos that he posted of himself, and we can look at him taking shots at Juju Smith-Schuster, and it all seemed like he was putting that stuff out there like he thought that was going to make him look good. And we all looked at it and was like, logically, none of this makes sense. So it seems really odd to me to somehow believe that all of a sudden that logic is going to influence the way he makes his decision. You have to understand that you're taking a risk, and the reward is very, very high if he can play to his best ability. But there will be some costs for bringing that guy in.
Okay, we'll wait and see what winds up happening. We'll have much more on it as we go. Meanwhile, let me get to the next piece of business because I've been looking forward to hearing the reaction to this all morning long. Baker Mayfield had a particularly tough day against the Steelers in Week 6. He was pressured on a career-high 52% of his dropbacks. He had a 5.5 total QBR. That was the second worst day of his career. He has thrown for the season 6 interceptions. Only 3 quarterbacks have more on this season. More than half have been particularly untimely. 4 of them have been on third down, which is tied for the league lead. And there's a lot to be desired when it comes to his accuracy and downfield passing. He's completing just 61% of his throws. That's 29th in the NFL. And if you're wondering if he has heard his critics so far this season, let there be no question of that. Here's what he said yesterday.
Damn what they say. It's within this building. We know we can be better. I know I can be better, and that's how it's going to be handled. The outside noise doesn't matter. They get paid to talk. We get paid to do our work. So that's how it's going to be handled. The feeling throughout the building after that loss, 4-2's never felt so much like 0-6 before. So, but that's because we have very high expectations for ourselves.
Pretty direct. Let me bring the crew back in here. Louis, Riddick, what are your thoughts on what Baker Mayfield said?
Yeah, we get paid to talk. They get paid to do their work. Well, do your work then. Do your work against quality opponents. Do your work against a rivalry that's just an hour or so, hour and a half or so away from you. I mean, I've made that ride numerous times. I was a part of that rivalry. Do your work against them then. Because, see, look, the reason why we're talking is because they were the ones who were talking first. They were the ones who coming into this football game against the Steelers. I believe it was Kareem Hunt said, we're going to do this for miles. They were the ones who were chirping. Pittsburgh wasn't saying a word, except that afterwards, I believe Mike Tomlin made reference to that's how you play varsity ball. That's what we just put out there on the football field. Don't make statements. Speak with your actions, because that's what people are tired of with Cleveland. People are tired of there being expectations. Well, first it was hope, and then it was expectations, and now it's unmet expectations, and it's inconsistent play. And see, that's the thing. With Baker himself, he has to understand, you were the #1 overall pick in the draft. With that comes the expectation that you're going to have a QBR better than 5 against your rival. You're going to be someone who can lift the rest of the people around you. You're someone who they can put the organization on your back. It's not happening right now. So for me, it's like, you know what? We're going to keep talking. We're going to keep talking until you perform. As simple as that, and it's not going to end.
Dominique, I'm trying to read your reaction here, Nick. What are you thinking?
that was painful. He scorched him. Like, that was unfortunate. Like, I honestly, after yesterday, like, I had some sympathy for Baker, and I thought that he was saying the right things. Like, he can't be completely quiet because we're going to put a microphone in front of his face and ask him the question. But Lewis is right. He has not lived up to expectations, but I'm not sure what else he's supposed to say yesterday other